And I definitely have to agree with you on that. I'm looking at an article right now, and it says that in the 30 years from 1940 to 1970, when house discrimination against blacks was legal and horrific, U.S. black home ownership, that rate doubled, going from 23% to 42%. But 50 years after the 1968 Fair Housing Act became a law, home ownership rate is essentially the same. So that means we're still stuck, and we're still stuck. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining today's episode of Unethical and Accountable. I'm Cameron Floyd.
I'm Dwayne Walden.
And welcome to the show. So today's topic is going to be financial literacy. As you all may or may not know, our show, we're going to address a couple of topics of discussion within the black community. We're going to talk about unethical decision making within our community, and then we're going to touch on the solutions to those unethical decisions or unethical behaviors. So we're going to hold those unethical decisions, we're going to hold those unethical decision makers accountable.
So before we get into the show, right, we want to let you guys know that this show is being sponsored by Rhino Academy. Guys, if you are looking to raise your credit score from the 400 club, 500 club, 600 club into the high 700 club and 800 club for free, make sure you head over to rhinoacademy.com. Guys, on this website, they teach you how to repair and build your credit for free. And not only do they teach you how to repair and build your credit for free, they also teach you how to get approved for high limit credit cards. So if you are looking for high limit credit cards to then leverage those high end credit cards to get your residual income, not any residual income, proven residual income, all for free, head over to their website, rhinoacademy.com. It is in the description below.
All right, and thank you to our sponsor. So to start out this episode, Wayne, I want to ask you, to talk about your upbringing, and talk about how financial literacy was integrated into your upbringing.
So, just to get it started, this topic, as we already know, is going to be about, do we believe, our parents could have taught us better financial literacy? And, me growing up, I didn't know too much about financial literacy. Like, it was something that it just never crossed me. I never understood it. It was never brought to me. I never knew anything about credit. I never knew anything about a mortgage. I never knew that I had to keep my credit limits a certain way to actually get approved. But, as I was younger, I just, I didn't notice, I grew up in, not the best community, so I never just understood, where, I understood where I was. I knew it wasn't that great, but I also knew that it wasn't also better out there also, because, I just didn't travel a certain ratio, north, south, east, west, into a better direction. I just didn't know. It just, when I got older, that's when I understood things better, and I understood, what, my parents had back then. It's just something I just caught, as I grew. It's just my upcoming, it wasn't the best. I didn't know too much about mortgages, building a business, so forth and so on. But, I did see it when I was growing up. It's just I did not understand it, shall I say. What about you?
So for myself, I say, it's the same boat. Growing up, I did have people in my family that owned houses, that owned properties. But at the same time, I was living in an area where, a lot of people were, receiving funding from Section 8. A lot of people were on welfare programs, and that's the reality that it was for me. I didn't know anything about credit to get a home, or paying rent, mortgage, insurance for homes or for rental properties. Those types of things, honestly. I didn't get it in school. And at home, it wasn't something that was a topic of discussion. So saying that, I think definitely that, as the Black community, it's safe to say, most of our households who, we may own homes, but we may still be in the hood.
Right.
Most of our, families, it's a good thing, but at the same time, we need to start discussing this topic over dinner. While our children are young, the process of how we got this house, or the process of getting their house, home ownership, the process of budgeting, creating a budget, how to spend your money responsibly. Those types of discussions weren't necessarily had. I saw it being done. We would go to the grocery store and my mom or my aunt would tell me, hey, this is the budget we have. We can spend this amount.
Right.
But as far as me doing that for myself, it took trial and error to do it.
Most definitely. Just to even keep going, when it comes to stuff like that, I always hear people say that our parents didn't understand anything about financial needs. They didn't understand credit. They didn't understand anything that any other culture basically benefit off of, right? But what goes on in our school is not being taught to us in our school, but it's being taught into other schools, which is the reason why some of our parents decided to get another address that was from a friend or family to get us into
to send us somewhere else.
Yeah, to a better school.
And I would say I'm a prime example of not necessarily that specific situation, but I'm a prime example of someone living in a community where the schools at the time, they weren't as good as those in other communities, to where all my friends went to the local public school and I'm going to a charter school. But at the end of the day, I got a good education. I got a great education. But those conversations still weren't necessarily had as far as budgeting, financial literacy, how to manage my finances, especially going into someone that was going into the college realm. That wasn't a discussion that was held in depth. I was told you have to apply for financial aid and that's it. I wasn't told, I was so there's a number of topics of discussion that we have to address with this. It's not just financial literacy within your home as far as managing the finances, paying your bills, anything like that. It goes even deeper. As a Black community, a lot of Caribbeans especially, they tell their kids, you got to go to school and get a degree. You either got to be a doctor or an engineer, either or. Choose one.
I know a lot of friends that's like that. They say, oh my gosh, I didn't even want to get into the medical field, but this is what they forcing me to do. Right. Mm-hmm. But that, like you say, they tell us to go to school, but they never technically teach us the other side. And then just to, shut down other people, opinions and thoughts, whether it's a fact to them or opinion to them, it's which what I always hear is, but our parents didn't know this. And I always challenge them, and I'll be like, how can we actually say our parents didn't know this, right? Because in our parents' time and in their mother's time, our great-grandmothers, they was actually fighting for better financial literacy, right? They was fighting to get a mortgage, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't want to get redlined no more, right? Back then, we was getting damaged with high interest rate, but they understood that they still needed some type of financial obligation to put themselves in a better financial situation, right? Or maybe when they needed to move into a better community, they understood that their credit score needed to be a certain way.
And I definitely have to agree with you on that. I'm looking at an article right now, and it says that in the 30 years from 1940 to 1970, when house discrimination against Blacks was legal and horrific, U.S. Black home ownership, that rate doubled, going from 23% to 42%. But 50 years after the 1968 Fair Housing Act became a law, home ownership rate is essentially the same. So that means we're still stuck, and we're still stuck at 40% over the course of 50 years. Over the course of 50 years, we're at 40% still.
Yeah, to me, that's actually it's crazy.
And it shows. It proves your point. It shows that our our ancestors, our great grandmothers, our aunts, all that, they knew, because they were fighting for these things.
Exactly.
They knew that it was important, especially to own a home. Actually, and another article says that home ownership is the pivotal, is the key factor to the wealth disparity in the United States of America. So if you want to address financial literacy, you want to address all that, we got to start with home ownership.
Yeah,
we got to start
with real estate, because when you look at these billionaire portfolios or the higher multimillionaires out here, when you look at they actually portfolio, if not half or more than half, majority of that is made up with real estate. And at the end of the day, real estate is home ownership. It just goes together, right? If you actually wanted to start investing into real estate, home ownership is the best way to actually get into it, right? But like I say, this is what our parents didn't teach us. But the crazy part is the majority of all our parents, in some type of way or form, whether it was your grandmother, your mother, they all owned a home. Like my mother owned a home, right? She didn't tell me to go out there. Hey, you son, you better go get get a home. Like I wasn't taught that. Not saying it was right or wrong, but it was just something that I didn't. That conversation just never came about yet.
Yeah, and the thing is though, I understand that to an extent, because I do believe that home ownership is not for everyone. Right. Honestly, some people don't want to own a home, and they have their reasons, and they're entitled to their reasons. But statistics show that home ownership is the pivotal factor to the wealth disparity within America. Well, so
I think they should, when you think about it, because I mean, honestly, I know some people that have been paying rent in the same spot forever,
and you have no stake in where you're staying.
None. But then at the end of the day, the moment you fall behind on that rent,
you're ready to go,
right? But if you actually own the mortgage, it takes time for you to actually get put out that house, right? You got to go through so many steps before your financial obligation actually go upside down in order for them to actually get you out the house, right? Whatever. If you cannot afford this mortgage no more, at least you have time to actually sell this house before it go to a short sale. But once again, this is stuff that that wasn't taught. And then another thing that the black culture always says, oh, we don't even get taught this in our school. But then I look at people and say, yo, we in 2021. You can learn majority of everything on, I call YouTube University, right? And even if you don't go on YouTube University, it takes nothing for anybody to just open up a computer and go on google.com and do some quick research to learn just the basics. And it's up to you to do your due diligence and your own trial and errors to learn from there.
Definitely.
So it's not that the point of the matter that school is not teaching us. It's like we're not even putting effort into learning this stuff.
So, and that's why I have a slight disagreement on that.
Go ahead.
Because I believe schools should actually, in fact, be teaching these types of things. When I was in high school, I had one professor that would sit with us and go through financial budgeting for your household, paying taxes, mortgage, and everything. And guess what? He wasn't a mathematics, teacher. He wasn't the life skills teacher. He was a social studies teacher. Right. But he said, this is not being taught. This is not in your curriculum. So I'm going to implement it myself. So that's something that will always stick with me. So I don't necessarily think it falls all on the school system or on the household, but I do think that it's something that needs to be addressed. So where do you think we start as far as in the black community and addressing this issue of financial literacy?
Well, the first thing we have to do is, even going back to our first episode, a lot of this stuff starts with the church community. They could actually build better schools for us. But outside of that, as a parent who I don't have kids, but to any parents that have kids, you first have to teach your kids financial literacy at a young age. We have to remember that our kids' brains develop over time. So Definitely. The younger they is, the more they learn. So we have to teach our kids better financial literacy at a young age, so it can sponge in their brain.
They got more brain capacity. Yeah,
exactly right. So we have to not set our kids back, right? I heard stories where people out there, when I was doing my research, where I heard parents was putting bills in their kids' names, and when they turn the age of 18, them bills turn into debt.
Mm-hmm.
You already set your kids back just by doing simple stuff as that. We cannot continue to allow our kids to grow up in financial debt. We as adults, one, must get our own financial obligations in order. Once we get our own financial obligations in order, it's our job to get our kids financial obligations in order. Because at the end of the day, we still have to send them to college if you're sending them to college, or you have to just prepare them for the real world that's out there. So we have to be able to get these things in order. Like credit is very important, right? We have to understand that credit is there not to say, "Ooh, I have a 800 credit score." No, that credit score is there to actually help you get in better predicaments, and you have to utilize that credit score to open up businesses, establish businesses, go out here and take courses, right? Use these credit cards in a very smart, strategic way to put yourself in a better situation.
Definitely.
And then also pass this down to your kids, because that's the biggest thing. We have nothing to pass down to our kids. Like,
Yep.
we have nothing whatsoever. My great grandmother, and she owned one of the biggest daycares in Miami Gardens, Carol City back then, what it was called. It was working play daycare. It was one of the biggest daycares out there. But me growing up, I did not understand the entrepreneurship that was being presented to me, because I grew up under my great grandma also. But I think, over time, that's something that should have been taught
Definitely.
to my mother. That's something that should have been taught to me. That should have been something that triggered down. Like, that daycare should have never shut down, when she was around.
Somebody should have took on that, yeah.
Because that's what you call passing down your fortunes.
Yeah.
And that daycare, when I say it was one of the biggest daycares in that community, everybody went through this daycare. And for it to close without nobody not picking it up because that wasn't the interest. Sometimes it's not about us not having an interest. It's just about keeping that fortune going.
And I gotta share a similar story. So, my family, originated from the Bahamas. And my background is they came during a time where, we were struggling, and black people in general were struggling,
Right.
and going through the racial discrimination and everything in Miami. So this was the peak of the civil rights movement. My I won't say ancestors, but they were actually one of the first homeowners to live outside of the projects area. So the government projects, the housing projects, they were one of the first families to live outside of those projects and actually own a home, purchase a home. So honestly, I do feel like they had some type of understanding of, building your credit, and establishing a foundation, not only for yourself, not only for your children, but for their children as well. And I say that to say that, I seen, over the years, I grew up in this home with my great grandparents. I grew up in this home. And over the years, as the years passed by, my great grandparents passed on. And there came a time where, it was the opportunity for a family member or someone within our family to take over that property. And, whether they couldn't at the time or they, no one did it. So now I visit my old neighborhood and I see the houses all remodeled, and it's going for 2 times what it was worth, when it was in foreclosure. When there was a second mortgage taken out, and it couldn't be paid, and no one wanted the responsibility because of whatever reasons. This is just an example of that, and the history behind that house, or that piece of land, is something that is always going to be a part of me, but
Definitely.
I'm disconnected from it at this point. So that. And that's not just on a financial, literacy tip. It's just on a, family foundation. Okay, we had this, but we didn't see the value in it at the time.
Right.
And either no one was capable or no one wanted to take on that responsibility to hold that for future. So that's something that, definitely sticks with me to this day.
And just to add on, a lot of us actually let go of our great grandmother homes, right? And a lot of it, like you said, is because no one had interest. But not only did they not have interest, they didn't have the sense of mind to know that every year this real estate
It's
goes
accruing.
up
Yep.
and increasing in value every single year. Even when the market crash, eventually that market
It's
will
gonna
always get
rebound.
better. So a lot of us, so we see this old house, but we don't understand that if we actually put money into this house to bring the value up to wherever the market value is at that current time, that is actually could continue to be a cash cow. Even if you don't want to stay in that home, right? Fix it up, put a tenant in, continue to pay for it, and now you're building, you're building that network up. But not only that, another thing, within our culture is we overspend, right? We overspend our needs. Like what we make a year and what we spend, it never adds up. We always overspend. Like we always have to be ready to get the new Jordans that come out. Oh, we need this Balenciaga bag.
So,
right?
and I would ask, where do you think that stems from, and how do we face that issue? Because that's something I've experienced, noticed as well, and it's something that myself, I'm even guilty of doing.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I could truly say I was the same way. Like it's like what I did almost. I have to eventually wake up and understand that I want better in this world, right? I must first hold myself accountable, right? I have to hold myself accountable for my actions. And I have to understand that if I know no one is out there helping me, I have to go out there and help myself. So that's the first thing. Now, once you do that, we have to understand that we are now in a time where everything is online, right? The online education industry is right now at almost $318 billion today. And they're saying it's going to be worth more in the future, if not already worth more, right? So we have to understand that it's courses out there that could teach us financial literacy, that could help build us into a better person who we are, right? We have to stop worrying about what other people think. Like me, for example, I care less about wearing a Gucci shirt, a Balenciaga shirt. I care less. That never was something that I always liked. But we, poor people, I hate to say, right? We have to go out there and buy the latest thing just to make it seem like we up to the latest. And at the end of the day, we buy it and then we go home and we can't even pay our bills because we trying to impress the next person. We must stop that, right? And we have to invest. We have to invest in every single thing that we could possibly get into. Like I said, the easiest way to start investing is real estate. Because at the end of the day, home ownership is very important. We must first invest into our own mortgage. Because at the end of the day, when you're paying rent, you're paying someone else mortgage. Yep. You're paying someone else tab. So if you're going,
and everyone has to have a place to live.
Most definitely,
everyone has to have a place they live in.
So it's just simple. Just start by looking into your first property, whether it's a multi-family property, because you could get a multi-family under a single family loan. Whether you want to do it that way, or whether you just want to just get a single family home just for you without being a multi-family, right? Just to look into investing into a property, and then from there you're able to maneuver into certain lanes. Like you already know, I have my own trucking company now. I have my own real estate company, real estate investments already. My credit repair company, right? It's different lanes we can actually get into once we establish ourselves into the right mindset to say, you know what, I don't want these name brand things, right? Because at the end of the day, these name brand things, they're not going nowhere. We can always get this at a future date. Right now, we need to make those sacrifices and spend that money that's going to actually bring back money, right? So they always say, whatever you spend, you need to make sure you're bringing it in 5 times more. And that's just something we have to do, right? I know a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship. No, entrepreneurship is not about, it's not for everyone. Definitely. But at the end of the day, if you know entrepreneurship is not for you, you need to educate yourself to be to get yourself inside of the top position at whatever company you choose to work in. So if you choose to, work in, let's just say, the hospitality industry, you need to make it your best, your best solution to try to become that manager of that company. Because if you don't want to go the entrepreneur route, you have to get your income up.
And I'll go even further. To say that, if you don't believe the entrepreneurship route is for you, but you're interested in these different industries, why not, take a chance, and sometimes you have to invest in others and what they're doing in order to see that return. Because for instance, I'm interested in the fashion or the clothing industry, but I know a lot of people that also do that themselves.
Right.
They maintain their own businesses. Why not invest in those and at the same time make sure that they're doing their due diligence to be a successful company, to make a profit, and to basically accomplish whatever mission they have in place, whether that be to produce luxury apparel that is affordable, or to provide clothing to low income families, whatever the mission may be. Why not find something that I align with and say, hey, I'm going to invest in that, rather than going outside my community or outside, something that I would do, meaning these Italian fashion designers to get they designer clothing. Why do you feel like we do that as the Black community? What does that stem from? Like that's my biggest question, because I'm myself, I'm guilty of it. When I got a little money, first thing I was like, oh, I need a little car. Then I was like, I need a little, I got a little bit more money. I'm like, okay, I need a better house, better place to live. Then I was like, okay, I need a chain now. Then I need I need some shoes. What does that stem from?
It's simple, man. It's because, one, I hate to say it, the hip hop industry holds a big part of what we do as
It's
a
big
culture.
influence, yeah.
It's like, if it's not the hip hop culture, it's most definitely the I hate to say, the dope boys in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Just those two right there alone is the reason why we go out there and believe that we need all this stuff. It's something that I hate to say, the other cultures profit off us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they put this money behind these hip artists. They put this money behind the drugs that flows into our community.
Yeah.
And it set us back, but they make sure we also see the prosperous, the
Yeah.
prosperous side of it,
And
to
if
make
you-
us want to spend
You
it.
think about it, the rappers nowadays or everybody that's getting this jewelry, guess what? They going to the Asian person,
Most
they going to
definitely.
Hispanic, the Italian, and they get like we setting the the market industry standards, but we're not contributing to our own community. So at the end of the day, and we're basically funding the jury and all that. We're funding these things that don't
Fund
have
just
any.
about every industry
Yeah.
that's out there. We fund, if not fund, we literally keep just about every industry
And these things
afloat.
decline in value.
Exactly.
Once you buy some diamonds, it doesn't appreciate in value. Once you put some diamonds in a Rolex or what I'm saying, a Patek Philippe,
You're not paying for what it's worth. You're paying for the time that it took for them to actually make it.
Mhm.
And that's where we losing the value at. So, like you said, we just have to get better. Like even me, I brought this watch, but I did it a certain way. Like I say, I didn't put diamonds all in it. But I did it a certain way to where it holds its value. We just have to, make ourselves knowledgeable of how to do things better. And it's not about doing it to impress other people. It's
Mhm.
just we doing it because we love it, right? Once you already love something, you can always first of all, you should always treat yourself. You should never just
Definitely.
not want to treat yourself. But it's a time and place to when you should treat
It
yourself.
has to be reasonable.
Right. Don't over treat it, because like I say, a lot of times, I want to go out, so I need to get that fresh outfit. And me personally, I'd rather go in my closet and just get whatever I got from 5 years ago. I don't care what a person say. That's just me. So we have to understand, like, we have to stop always overspending on things we technically don't need. So that's one thing. But yeah, man, as a community, we just have to get better. We can't get better. Like I said, it starts with credit. Everything starts with credit. Even though we all say cash is king, but to every king we need a queen, and that's where credit falls in. So credit is the queen, cash is king, and we just have to be able to do our finances better. We have to learn about finances better. Like I say, we is in 2021 where we can learn just about anything we want to know online. I'm not saying you should trust everybody, but again, it's up to you to do your due diligence on what's right, what's wrong, and what's the right way, what's the wrong way. But at the end of the day, everything is online for us to learn, to grow, and to build. And that's what we have to start doing. For everyone who have kids, we have to start building our kids' education funds up. So when they get a certain age, they have something to piggyback on, and then they can also not only piggyback on it, they can also build on it to pass it down to
They'll have
the
that
next
knowledge
generation.
already at that point.
That's all it's about. That's one thing our culture lack. We lack knowledge. So we just have to keep feeding our brains. I know we like listening to a lot of shows like our show. A lot of us like listening to shows, but we have to start feeding our brains with shows that's actually going to benefit us, right? Because I am a big believer of you are what you feed yourself. It's just like if you eat junk, your body go eventually break down from all the bad habits that you've been over time. It's the same way our brain works. You have to keep feeding your brain knowledge.
Whatever you put that time into, that energy, that mind power into.
It's always. So if you're not out there feeding your brain, eventually it's gonna always crumble into dust. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna go ahead and wrap the show up. We have to do better as a whole. Even myself, I'm continuing to grow and get better in life. So remember, everything starts with credit. Go ahead and we have to be willing to take a risk and sacrifice and invest in things. That same $400 or $500 that you was going to spend on, I don't know, a Louis shirt or something like that, go ahead and spend that into a course that's going to better yourself. Or if you don't want to even spend it into a course, I'd rather, put it into a bond. Like, we have stock bonds out there that, it stays at its value. Go ahead and invest in something that's just going to continue to appreciate over time. So, guys, that's the end of the show. I don't know, Cam, if you have something else to add on.
Just to piggyback on that, we just, again, we got to invest in ourselves first and foremost. That's the main point really of this conversation. To my point, if you're gonna spend some money, do it responsibly and make sure that it's bringing something back to you. Now, if you're an artist, and you're performing, for example, and you're going, around city to city, state to state, your image is, what you're wearing and what you're doing. Right. So, think about it in this light. Find a way to make, whatever you have to wear, your apparel and anything, make it make money for you, or make it to where that, you're getting paid for, whatever you purchasing or whatever image that you have to uphold. So as a Black community, I feel like we need to do this better. We control the markets. We control all the industries. We have to support each other. Whether that's being going to your local convenience store. First, we got to support each other. We got to trust each other. We got to teach our children to trust, our black grocery stores, our Black commerce. We got to teach our children this. We have to start with our children, because what I've noticed personally is that as a Black male, even and again, I'm guilty of this sometimes. I don't necessarily trust my Black businesses as much as I trust going somewhere where it's luxury. Sometimes we got to start trusting each other. We got to start teaching each other. We got to start teaching our children. We got to instill that in our children, and then we'll be all right. Because at the end of the day, we control all of the markets. We influence everything that's going on. So we have to just, acknowledge and, hold ourselves accountable again, because we have the power. Right now, we're just ignorant to the fact that we have that power. Once we take control of that power, it's lethal. We can build our own communities with that.
So with that being said, guys, thank you once again for watching our show, Unethical and Accountable, with me, Dwayne and Cam. Guys, if you find this show to be very interesting, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you share this show with your peers. Guys, tune in to next week's show where we talk about unethical relationships, guys. We're going to talk about unethical mothers, aka baby mamas, and the show after that is going to be unethical fathers, aka baby daddies. Guys, once again, hit that like, subscribe, and share that button with the next person you watch it with. Guys, with that being said, thank you for watching our show, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace.